Children of RaShell. It is a story about sort of a children of man type of situation where nobody's having babies. And there's this lab called RaShell, RaShell. And at RaShell, they're creating little albino clones. And whereas they're like 8, physically, genetically, they're like 16. And they just kind of reproduce. Their embryo triggers and they just get pregnant. And things have not been that great. Now, we open in a very cloudy, very confused sort of way. We open with a guy named Xander, who is lost and fumbling through tunnels, and he's puking everywhere, and he hears something that's impossible. Peals of children's laughter. And it's just like, no, that's not possible. Children don't exist anymore. They haven't existed for so long. There's no reason why the children just stopped existing. There's no bomb. There's no thing that was that was thrown away instead of recycled. There's no specific thing that triggered the end of the world that makes people infertile, that there's no children. The world is not built very well. One thing I like about Jodi's writing is less is more, but maybe just a little bit more would have done well here. That was a major stumbling block for me, and to why it probably wasn't selling as much is because I don't really feel there's much of a world. I feel like there's an outline of a world, but not so much a whole story. But anyway, Xander runs into Sabine, and we quickly learn that Sabine worked for RaShell, and she was a geneticist, and she was helping make the clones. And then we learn that she went and she stole some clones, Naraya, Arya, and some third girl. They're just there to be pretty. They're all the same. They all look the same. I don't know how you can tell them apart. And they live underground in this world that isn't very developed either. And it's sort of like Demolition Man, because they are eating rat burgers. Anyway, there's a magical lake and it has healing powers. And Sabine gives Xander some water from the magical lake, and he's no longer nauseous. And then somehow through some dialogue, it's not very clear, Sabine says to Xander, I gotta go to RaShell because I gotta convince Gavin, the big bad, he's not very fleshed out either, that what we have here is good. Because before she decided to trek on the surface in a post-apocalyptic Mad Max type of world, before she decided to trek upon the surface, they went around in the tunnels because one of the council members came to her and said, hey, I got something to tell you. So in the tunnels, there are naturally pregnant women, and they believe the lake has the healing powers. Everything is just too easy. And it's kind of annoying. It's way too easy. Anyway, Xander says, okay, I'll stay here with the kids. You go off on your own. So she goes and she treks to the RaShell Bionics laboratory. It's probably one of the only buildings on the surface. I don't know. It's kind of unclear how everything is put together. Down under, Xander's got the 3 clones and a guy named Dalton. And then there's 2 council members who I think are Warren and Mary. Don't know. Could be wrong. Don't quote me on it. I know I just finished it. I literally just finished reading the last word like an hour ago, if even that long, but they didn't leave an impression on me at all. So she treks over there, she runs into Gavin, and Gavin, along the way, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Along the way, she stops to pee, right? And she puts her hand on a bit of wood to steady herself. But there's a mutated 3-tailed scorpion that gives her a good old stabby stab. And then she's like, well, that sucks. Anyway, I have this healing lake water, but I could be smart and drink it right now because I do have like 3 or 4 canteens of it and just a couple sips will do. But I want to show Gavin. I think I said this in the last video. Your head gets smart, but your brain gets dumb. This girl has like no sense of self-preservation. Nobody in this book does. But anyway, she goes to Gavin and Gavin's like, where are my girls? She almost dies from the scorpion bite. He gives her Pfizer big pharma medicine. And she's like, no, give me my canteen. I'll show you. And so she drinks the water and the scorpion sting goes down and everything. And then she says to him, it's my magic water in the lake. It's underground. I just got to show you. And he's like, yeah. Tell it to the judge. And he throws her in jail. Anyway, she's in jail for like 2 weeks eating nothing but the same sandwich and a glass of water like every day. I think only once a day too for like 2 weeks. And then he comes to her and he says, so your water really will do things great? And it's like, yeah. And you have my girls there at your little establishment? She says, yeah. And then he says, okay, I'm going to set you free, but you bring my girls back. And then she's like, I don't think I trust you. So instead of just going back the nice straight way, she goes back the super complicated way and she hurts her hand somehow. And it splices back and forth between her perspective and Xander's perspective. And Xander's all like, she's been gone a long time. What the heck's going on? And then suddenly here comes somebody and one of the girls is like, Xander, come see. And it's not who he thinks. It's someone else from RaShell Bionics. I think his name was Trevor. No, I don't remember his name. It's Trevor's father, but I don't remember his name. Anyway, he's there and he says, here's all this stuff that's happened. A lot of the plot and a lot of the secrets and everything is exposed through dialogue. We hardly really see anything happen, and not very many of the characters are making things happen that often. And I didn't really feel the big bad was such a big bad because I didn't feel there was really a lot of time spent getting to know any of these villains, any of these protagonists, any of these people. I didn't even feel there was any sort of stereotype. So Dalton, the nice guy that's lending them the house and everything, he says, all right, Xander, guess you got to go to the surface. So Xander goes and he goes to the surface and he finds out. Now here's the thing. Here's the backstory. A guy named Gavin and his wife Lilium lost a child named RaShell a long time ago. And I'm guessing that Lilium is albino because all of the twins are albino. And genetically speaking, I don't know if I'd want to like repopulate the world with albino babies because as far as I know, they have a lot of birth defects and they will go blind. So I don't know, just doesn't really seem like a very smart idea unless they can. And that seems like a lot of inbreeding because it's just one couple and they're just replicating their DNA over and over and over again, creating little lab babies. And then their daughters are giving birth kind of sort of at 8, but the babies are so accelerated and their growth is so accelerated that they're all dying. Anyway, shit is just not going well at RaShell Bionics. So she's going back while he's going out. And he finds out that they're all trying to get this resistance going. Everything's gonna be just fine once they get this resistance going. This is where Trevor comes in. Trevor finds Xander poking around looking for a master key because Xander used to be a security guard And then Trevor says, "The hell you're doing?" "Oh, I'm here to do this and do that." "Oh, well, goddamn, it's about time you're here." And so they concoct a plan to take the 40 or 42 clones from RaShell Bionics on a field trip, because Gavin has went after Sabine, because R3, there was the daughter, was RaShell. There was R1, she died in childbirth. R2 died in childbirth. And then R3 was like, "Fuck this shit, I'm out." And she started wandering away. A lot of it is just sort of exposited to a point where it's easy to read, but also like too easy to read. I read the majority of it while I was getting the good old stick and poke. I had to read it while I was just like, this hurts, let me focus on something else. And of course, at the times when he was shading and getting really good in there and getting those little details sketching away on my flesh, that's when I was reading about Sabine with her wound in her hand and salt and stuff, and beleaguered but still carrying on because she had to get back to the tunnels. Nothing has a name in this. It's just the lake, it's the tunnels. RaShell Bionics has a name. That kind of stuff. But anyway, she gets back. He leads the 40 girls back. Gavin got back, and Gavin's out waving around a gun like, "I will kill you all unless you tell me where my kids are. Where are my girls?" And they've got like 45, soon to be 46 clones there in this underground place that really can't sustain them, let's be honest. And Gavin comes in, and he's all like waving a gun around. He shoots some people. That was something that was actually a surprise, was that he shot Warren and Mary. He shot the council members. And he's saying he's gonna shoot Sabine's kneecaps, bury her to her head up in the sand, and just out of like, not even a cartoon villain. The unfortunate thing about these characters was they felt very paper doll, which is uncharacteristic of Jody, goddamn. It's uncharacteristic of Jody because her characters usually have like so much depth. That's why I liked Sophie's Key, and that's why even though I didn't really feel any danger with Selena, I liked her because she felt like she had depth, like there was a story there. I didn't get a chance at all to know any of these people. So when they died, I didn't feel anything. But anyway, Dalton had all the girls hide. And then Xander was like, "I'm going to go to this colony where all these pregnant women are hiding in this other tunnel. And I'm going to have them come over because I'm going to try and convince..." They tried to kill Gavin with kindness, but very clearly, it's not going to work. Gavin is not taken in by the magical powers of the lake. He doesn't give a fuck. So he goes out and he says, "Get them out here right now." And so he starts just saying, "Just start shooting." So he starts shooting, his crew starts shooting. They start killing the kids. They shoot Xander. One of the pregnant women dies. I don't know why they thought, honestly, that they could talk to this mustache twirling villain and show him whatever and he'd care. I mean, that just seemed to piss him off more. But anyway, no sense of self-preservation whatsoever with Sabine, because after everything's all done and after Xander... See, here's the thing. Xander's on the floor. He's bleeding out. Chaos is ensuing. Everybody's dying and bleeding. R3 makes it to the tunnels. She looks at Gavin, who is technically her father, and says, "I don't feel so good," and then just dies. She miscarries right there and dies. And then Gavin's like, "Oh no, I can't do this." Boom. And a few weeks to maybe a month or two later, Sabine is like, "I need to go back to RaShell Bionics. I need to do the right thing." And I'm just here like, stop doing that. That's really dumb. Make better choices. I thought you were smart. Anyway, so she goes back to RaShell Bionics. She has a brief little interlude with Lilium, Gavin's wife. Gavin's wife is like, you sleep now, and stabs her with some sort of plunger. I don't know if she's dead, if she's just gonna sleep and be a prisoner or whatever, but they've got all new clones. They're starting over with like all new clones. Who knows how many of the 40 of, I can't remember. I think I read it, but I think 25 out of the 40 lived. Don't quote me on that. But anyway, Xander's being told, I think Dalton is still alive. Xander's being told by Dalton, well, I think you need to go. And he's like, okay, fine, I'll go. And just as he's about to go, here comes one of the clones, and she's like, no, don't go. My embryo just triggered. And he's like, oh, you're pregnant. And that's the end of the book. Now, I liked it. I did. I honestly think I would rate it 5 stars, probably closer to 4, because the world building was very thin, if not non-existent. And the characters were paper dolls. They were paper-thin paper dolls. I think that had Jodi put a little more time into building this world and making it whatever, I wouldn't even have cared if she'd opened up with a little bit of an expository chapter thing, like a long time ago. An unknown illness took out whatever. I wouldn't even mind it. Jodi is a very short and sweet author. She just writes what she wants to write and no more. But I feel like the world wasn't built very well. It was very, very thin. But overall, more on the 4-star side than the 5-star side. I did rate it 5 stars on Amazon, but I think here I'm going to rate it 4 stars. So what do you think? Would you read a story about a world that's supposed to be built on clones and children don't exist? The Earth's surface is, nice and arid Mad Max style, because this gave me Mad Max Children of Men vibes.